The Silver Commander will be monitoring the situation at the police control room, watching what's going on and deciding with his tactical advisors and the rest of the command team what resources to deploy to deal with this, or if they've got enough resources there to manage the situation.
Is it your experience that the people amidst those thousands of students who've marched down from Trafalgar Square, you imagine ostensibly most of them keen to make a peaceful protest to parliamentarians they accuse of making education, higher education too expensive, that most of them actually are there to protest peacefully, but there will always be that hardcore, some say keen to hijack a legitimate protest?
Yeah, I think you're dead right. As you can see from the pictures on the screen, there's like a smaller element on the far side where the protected officers are. Through on the other side of the picture, it still remains reasonably peaceful and good-natured.
I mean, this, for those of you who know the area, for those perhaps who are a little less familiar with it, this is really the centre of political London. Those are live pictures, by the way, to the right of your screen of that police van which has been abandoned just at the end of Whitehall, not more than 200 yards from the entrance to Downing Street. But for those of you who are not that familiar with the area, you're just on the fringes here of Parliament Square, and that's where, as those pictures to the left show, the police are deciding to corral those protesters who've been on the way down from Trafalgar Square. Just a word again, just an apology really, that some of the placards bearing language which we wouldn't choose to use necessarily. We apologise for that. A protest at the heart of government today, and let's talk now to our Home Affairs correspondent Mark White, who's been covering this story, as he did indeed a fortnight ago or so, when that protest on November the 10th led to more than 60 arrests and so much damage that was done at Conservative Party headquarters and elsewhere at Millbank Tower and other parts of central London at times. Mark White, what can you see?
Well, Colin, I'm right down at the bottom end of Whitehall, just by the police cordon, in amongst the protesters. There's been quite a few missiles that are continuing now to be thrown over towards our position here where the police are, and every now and again there's a push towards the officers who are, as you can see from other shots, wearing full protective clothing as they try to get through the police line. So every now and then, all along this line, Colin, there is trouble erupting as people are pushing and prodding and testing those lines, and at the moment they're being held back quite successfully by the police, who obviously, as we know, are here in much greater numbers than they were a couple of weeks ago. But it's certainly a very volatile atmosphere, very noisy down here on occasions when this pushing and shoving erupts, and I say there continues to be missiles that are being thrown over, sticks that are used to hold up the placards, along with cans and bottles of beer, anything else that they can pick up at the time.
Mark, I know it's probably very difficult from where you're standing, but have you got any sense how big that hardcore of troublemakers, I think we can reasonably call them troublemakers, actually is?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely groups within here that are fairly insistent, let's say, on getting out of this area that they're in at the moment. Where they quite want to go, we don't know. Before, they were making their way down towards Parliament and to Victoria Gardens, just opposite Parliament. As I speak, there's more trouble just erupting in front of me, just pushing and shoving of the police lines. As I say, this happens on a fairly regular basis, Colin, as the the police defences here.
Mark, I'll tell you what, Mark, I'm just going to interrupt you because I want to...
A number of the shots that we're offering you have not just themselves in numbers here, but they have their vans parked across the bottom of Whitehall.
Mark, I'm just going to interrupt because I want to reflect another aspect to what might be happening here. I'm told that what you're witnessing on the right of the screen there, by the van, is students arguing amongst each other about how to deal with the situation there, some suggesting that violence isn't necessarily the right approach. Let's listen. message there. There was at least one student who was making the point that this was a peaceful demonstration and remonstrating with some of the other protesters, trying to encourage them not to damage that police vehicle, which has been abandoned pretty much in the centre of Whitehall, and the approach is to Parliament Square. But clearly different people have different agendas, different approaches to what's happening here today, and the sense of solidarity in terms of how to approach this protest is clearly not universal. Let's listen again. I suppose it's often the way, isn't it, Graham Wetton, that with your experience of policing demonstrations like this, there will be those who try to hold on to the original purpose of the demonstration, which in this instance we're told was a peaceful demonstration, but it's not easy.
No, it's not, and I actually feel some sympathy for her. She's obviously trying to keep the focus for today on the issue at hand and what they want to protest against, and as we can see now, everybody's going to be focusing on the police vehicle being damaged in Whitehall and these pictures instead of the protest issue.
People will wonder, these protests are planned in conjunction with the police. Certain roads are closed off. Part of Whitehall was closed off, for instance, to buses and other traffic. And the negotiations that the police will have will be with women like that,
yes,
who are reasonable.
Yes, exactly so. That they would, if it's an organised protest with an event organiser, they sign a declaration to say they will steward the march, and they agree a route with the police, they agree a start time and a finish time, and then the police plan it accordingly.
Look, let's just listen again, because I think there's another example of what we're talking about here, with some of the organisers trying to stop the damage.
I don't think so.
Widespread disruption and disorder that is now occurring around it. A number of protesters, one bizarrely with an oven glove on top of this van, and others now getting on it. What is quite interesting is that there are a number of student protesters here urging them not to take this protest into this kind of violence and criminal damage that is occurring on Whitehall at the moment. A number of protesters urging people to stop trying to turn this van over, but largely being ignored. And that is what we saw perhaps at the Millbank riot, that it is a small minority.
Get your fucking hand off there.
Okay, we just had one or two protesters.
Tom, I tell you what, listen, Tom, you reposition. It looks like there's quite a melee going on down there. We'll let Tom go. We've still got the aerial pictures on the left there. Let me bring Graham Wetton back in. Graham has policed demonstrations as part of his work with CO11, the public order specialist within the Metropolitan Police. How will your former colleagues on that police line be feeling right now when they see one of their vans being trashed like that?
I don't think they'll be very happy, but there's not an awful lot they can do about it.
Are you sure about that? I mean, this is a real red rag, isn't it? These protesters are saying to the police, you are not in charge. Right now, at this moment, you are not in charge of one of those most sensitive, secure parts of central London.
But I think at the end of the day, you can distance yourself from the vehicle that you've come up in and the type of graffiti, and just by looking at Whitehall, you can see it's not the whole group involved. It is, you know, it's a small element, you know it's a smaller group, you can see the people trying to reason with them, so you know actually you're only going to be dealing with a minority that are against you. Yeah. The majority of people just want to have a peaceful protest. And you can see the distance now between the police line and the van that's stuck there.
I often think when big demonstrations like this happen, there's such a concentration of police resources on this particular area. Other parts of the capital might not necessarily have so many officers around. It's a sort of red letter day for other criminals, in a sense, isn't it?
It's difficult as well, because I think, as we saw on November the 10th, the balance for the event commanders is not to put too many police on that one event, the one demonstration, but the balance then they have to have is to maintain a peaceful protest and law and order.